Total Screen proudly presents their official podcast, OnScreen, with your hosts, Tyson Gifford and William Rohrig. Hello, everybody, and welcome to OnScreen, the official podcast of the Total Screen. My name is Tyson.
My name is Will.
And today, as always, we are going to be discussing The Last of Us, Episode 3 this week. We also have a little bit of news to go over, DC-related, and a few things to look forward to on the horizon. Let's kick things off with our On Beat segment. On Beat is where we discuss the week's news. We got one story this week, but it's a big story, and that is that James Gunn and Peter Safran have finally revealed their DC plans. So they assembled a writer's room of sorts to handle all the project management, and that includes Christina Hodson, Jeremy Slater, Drew Goddard, Crystal Henry, and Tom King. There's some notable people in there. Drew Goddard, of course. Tom King is a pretty well-known comic writer.
Yes.
There's some people in there that are kind of worth, looking forward to, I guess, being involved in this.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. In my opinion, they got a fantastic slate of films lined up. I'm optimistic for this. I saw this, and I was like, you know what? This is good.
They said their goal is to do 2 movies and 2 shows a year. They said their main story is going to be about an 8 to 10 year plan, but the first part is going to be called Chapter 1, Gods and Monsters, and it's going to be movies and TV shows released between 2025 and 2027, apparently. They also announced, before we get to their new slate of stuff, we still have Shazam! Fury of the Gods, The Flash, Blue Beetle, and Aquaman and the Last Kingdom are all rounding out the old guard of movies that were already done. James Gunn says The Flash is one of the best superhero movies ever, and Gunn and Safran both said they would like to work again with some of the directorial talent that were involved in these movies.
Actually, yeah, James Gunn actually said Ben Affleck expressed interest in being involved, and they're
as a director, yeah,
as a director, and they're looking for a project for Ben Affleck to direct. Ben Affleck, I don't think he doesn't want to be on screen. He doesn't want to be Batman there's a reason why he dropped out of doing a solo Batman movie, and then they had to go find Robert Pattinson because he just doesn't want to do that. I think he's more comfortable directing.
Affleck is also a better director than he is an actor, so.
Yeah.
Let's move on to the slate, though, the actual slate. So, starting in order, Creature Commandos. This is going to be an animated series, directly ties into the DCU. It's going to, events happening in this are going to be DCU relevant.
Yeah, this is the thing. Everything ties into everything, even if it's animated. One of the things they point out is they are looking for a voice cast for this, but he noted the voice cast has to be people who will take up the roles when those characters transition into live action material.
Yes.
So it's going to be the same people in animated and live action.
Mm-hmm. The cast of characters for this is going to involve a human leader, a werewolf, a vampire, Frankenstein's monster, or Gorgon, and Weasel from the Suicide Squad is also going to appear. That was listed kind of separately, so I'm guessing they're saying that he's not what part of the crew. He's just going to be in the movie.
I know, but he was in the teaser artwork they showed. So this is being written by James Gunn himself.
He said he already wrote it. It's already done. The writing is already done, at least.
This is very much James Gunn in his wheelhouse. Weird, eccentric characters that come together to form a found family.
Interesting, this is the first of their slate,
This is not necessarily the first of their slate. This is a release order. He very specifically said this kicks off with Superman Legacy.
What I saw was he said that Superman Legacy is the true start. So like these other things are going to be less consequential, and Superman Legacy is what's going to actually kick off the story.
Okay. Well, yeah, maybe I interpreted that differently. But yeah, anyway.
I don't know. The way the information was presented was kind of quick and loose.
Yeah, it was. It was. We don't have a lot of information to go on here.
Yeah. But the next project that was announced is Waller. We already knew about this. This is a live-action TV series. It's a direct follow-up to the events of Peacemaker, with Viola Davis reprising her role as Amanda Waller.
This is going to be a bridge. This is going to take place in between Peacemaker Season 1 and Peacemaker Season 2, which did not get discussed here.
Yeah, he said something about being busy, too busy for Peacemaker 2 right now or something, so.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I mean, yeah, he is very busy. So, yeah.
So, yeah, but this is also, it's going to be written by Crystal Henry, who worked on Watchmen, and Jeremy Carver, the creator of Doom Patrol. The two of them are going to be writing this. Apparently show running, but they just listed as writing. Next up, we got the big one, Superman Legacy.
Yes.
True start of the DCU, written by Gunn. Peter Safran said in some interview that he was actually kind of hoping that Gunn would direct it too, but Gunn has not committed to directing it.
Right, yeah, James Gunn has not committed to directing this, but he is writing the script.
He said it is not an origin story, and the kind of quote he gave was like it was going to focus on kindness being like seen as old-fashioned, and so Superman is going to be like a symbol of kindness that's kind of seen as an old-fashioned trait in the world.
It's going to be interesting.
That's an interesting way of putting it. It makes me feel like this lines up more with like Reeves' Superman.
It's not going to be the Zack Snyder version of Superman, where Zack Snyder kind of wanted to focus on like the idea of Superman being like a religious figure, that was his take. This is a completely more back to the basics take on the character.
And the other thing we know about this from before is that it's going to be a younger Superman. That was announced when Henry Cavill was let go from, from DC because he was older and they wanted to go with a younger Superman.
James Gunn even went out of his way to clarify that Henry Cavill's not in this, not involved. He said, for this Superman, it's not Henry. He just said basically said Henry Cavill is not the right person to portray this version of Superman.
I mean, yeah, and that's kind of all we really know about Superman Legacy.
Yeah.
We just know the name and those small bits of details.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Next project we learned about is a live action series called Lanterns that's going to focus on two of the Green Lanterns, Hal Jordan and Jon Stewart. And he said, interestingly, that it's going to be terrestrial set, so it's going to be on Earth.
Yes.
And it takes influence from True Detective. That's interesting.
That's interesting. Yeah, that's going to be cool. I feel excited about this. I feel like really honing in, first of all, the idea of it being like they're teaming up and working together as partners instead of just like focusing on one lantern by themselves is a great idea to have. And
the smaller scope is kind of interesting too, because lanterns, Green Lanterns are like, they're the DC version of cosmic, they're like crazy, imaginative, special effects all over the place, and this sounds like it's going to be a lot more narrowed down.
But the important thing to remember is the Lantern Corps, they all have like their beats where they're supposed to like be patrolling and protecting. And for Hal Jordan and Jon Stewart, that's Earth. They're supposed to be on Earth, protecting it from extraterrestrial threats.
So that's Lanterns.
Yeah, that's going to be cool.
The next project we know about is The Authority. This is a feature film, and it's going to be a mix of anti-heroes. The characters are, and I don't know any of these characters, so I just copied it down.
I don't know much about The Authority myself. I know it was originally created at Image Comics for Wildstorm. When Jim Lee sold Wildstorm to DC Comics, they absorbed that imprint in all their characters. And
I've heard this is like the biggest surprise.
Yes, this is the biggest surprise. Because this is the first time we've seen anything from Wildstorm, even like planned for like a big major like Warner Brothers motion picture.
So the characters involved in this are Jenny Sparks, Swift, Jack Hawksmoor, the engineer, Jerome Thorndike, Apollo, and Midnighter. I have no idea who any of those are. I don't really know anything about the Authority. All I heard is it is a mix of anti-heroes, and it's about, a group of people, like a superhero team that was put together that's to get shit done, basically.
Yeah, and it's by any means necessary.
Yeah.
So basically, if they have to like nuke a city full of civilians, they'll do it.
Yeah.
If that means getting the job done. They're not like the Justice League or Superman where they're going to hold back and try not to cause collateral damage.
Yeah. So it's interesting, like, when you look at we've talked about so far. We have a group of monsters. We have a government agent who's willing to go extremely far. We have a Superman series about kindness. We have a True Detective-inspired Green Lantern series. That's going to be about discovery and detective.
By the way, about that Green Lantern series, they also noted that what they will be investigating in that show is going to be a through line, is going to be the major revelation of the entire first section of films. It's going to tie in big time.
Yeah. So that puts together a big piece of the puzzle there. And then you have a superhero team that will get things done at all costs.
Yeah.
So that's just like, that's your first half of the lineup right there. And it's like pretty interesting picture it's creating for what the DCU is going to look like.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's a lot of variety off the bat, which is really cool.
And then we move into Paradise Lost. I think we already knew about this, but we didn't have a title yet. I vaguely recall them talking about doing a TV series set in Themyscira.
Oh, maybe. If that came up, I don't remember it coming up, but yeah.
I think they talked about it. It's one of those things where they talked about it briefly. It's kind of like that DC's version of the Wakanda TV series, where we heard about it, but that's about all we know about it, is that it exists.
And they're describing this as very Game of Thrones-esque, lots of political infighting and intrigue.
Yeah, it takes place before Wonder Woman and Diana.
Yes.
Before Diana's
Wonder
born.
Woman. I think some outlets reported it as, this is a prequel to Wonder Woman films. I think that's a mistake or a misunderstanding on their part. I think this is a prequel to the DCU Wonder Woman.
Yeah. I think this is also largely, it's not, I don't think this series is intended to be like a setup for what Wonder Woman's going to be so much as like plot points that are going to be throughout this entire arc of the DCU slate.
Yeah, exactly.
And they're just using that setting as like an interesting point for that. And it's interesting that's going to be, that was at least announced after, if we don't know the release order, after the Authority. Like, it kind of gives you an idea, like it almost seems like, oh, okay, Paradise Lost would be the point where they step back and go, okay, and now we're going to look at the origin of some of the stuff you just learned about,
Yeah, exactly.
So I think that's kind of interesting.
The next one, this is one I'm probably the most excited about.
This is the one I'm excited about, but I'm also nervous about, because it's like, this is the point where you're going to have two cinematic Batman, things going on simultaneously.
Yeah.
Well, three if you count Joker, because Batman's in that.
Right.
Or Bruce Wayne is at least in that, But
I'm excited about this because they're doing something with this movie like they've never done with a Batman movie, and it's like, finally.
Yes, they're doing The Brave and the Bold. This is the DCU Batman, so we know now for sure also that the Robert Pattinson The Batman movies are going to be an Elseworlds thing, unrelated to the DCU. They're going to continue, but unrelated to the DCU.
Yeah, and this is going to be the official DCU Batman.
And it follows Bruce and Damian Wayne, as Damian Wayne being this version of Robin for this movie.
Yes. Damian Wayne
kind of the most interesting of the Robins, from what I know.
Well, Damian Wayne, his deal is, he is Bruce Wayne's biological son, who Bruce Wayne had with Talia al Ghul. You might know her father, Ra's al Ghul.
It was one of the Al Ghuls. I don't remember which daughter.
Yeah. Okay, yeah.
He's got two, right? He's got two daughters?
I think so, but it's Talia.
Yeah.
Like, I watched Batman the Animated Series, damn it, I remember. They had a thing. Yeah.
This is based on the Grant Morrison run of the Batman comics.
But Damian was born to Talia, like, without Bruce Wayne's knowledge at all. He didn't know about this kid for 10 years, and he was raised within the League of Shadows under the training of his grandfather, Ra's al Ghul.
I think James Gunn referred to Damian as a murderous son of a bitch.
Yes, yeah. So when he comes into Bruce's life, he's a little like wild and out of control, which presents a problem as like he dons the cowl as Robin, and that's going to be really interesting dynamic because it's going to be like a dynamic you've never seen in a Batman film before, ever, and also the fact that this is taking place with an older Batman, with Damian, that means that the rest of the Bat family is in place. That means that you have Nightwing, you have Batgirl. They can bring the rest of the Bat family into it, which Peter Safran said it's been long past due that the Bat family, get their due in the feature films.
Yes. So that's an exciting one. First cinematic appearance of Damian Wayne.
Yes.
I think a lot of people are going to be excited for that when it comes out. Next up, we have Booster Gold. This is an HBO Max series. I like Gunn referred to this as imposter syndrome as a superhero.
Yes.
It's about future tech and time travel. So Booster Gold is a character from the future who travels back and uses future tech to pretend to be a superhero.
Yes.
So there's a little bit of Kang in there, I guess. Except Kang is like more, like completely different tone.
Yeah, Kang is completely different tone.
And then a little bit of Mysterio. A little bit of Mysterio.
Yeah.
In there as well. I'm not too familiar with Booster Gold. I remember them talking about this before, though, when this was a project they wanted to launch in the Snyderverse, like, years ago.
Yeah, I've been waiting for them to do more with this character, because he's such a fun character. The thing is, like, he means well. He is not a villain. He means well, but he has self-esteem issues, and this is how he handles them. He also kind of sucks at being a superhero.
I really like the idea of imposter syndrome as a superhero. That's it's an interesting take.
Yeah.
Next up, we got Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow. This is another feature film based on Tom King's comic book series. And basically, we know Superman's origin story, launched away from Krypton as a baby. Well, this is Supergirl from the standpoint of the trauma of being on a chunk of Krypton and watching everybody she loves die.
Yeah.
In like sometimes gruesome or like, brutal ways. And then being like very jaded and hardcore. Apparently this run of the comics is like really beloved.
Yes.
I haven't read it, but that's what I've heard people talk about.
I haven't read it.
Was particularly good.
I gotta get a copy of it now. I saw the artwork. I love the artwork. It looks wonderful on it. Yeah, I'm really excited for this movie. It was overdue that they were going to do a Supergirl movie, but the fact that they're doing this Supergirl, this story, that's incredible. Sign me up.
It's a good contrast, too, that they're going for a very positive Superman.
Yeah.
Like old-fashioned, with kindness being a key character trait. And then they're going to introduce Supergirl with like the most brutal, hardcore version of that character. As like a key contrast to Superman,
Yeah, exactly, yeah. Which is going to be interesting, and that's going to set up an interesting dynamic when those two characters end up meeting.
Mm-hmm. And then the last thing we have for the DCU slate is Swamp Thing, which is kind of crazy that this is going to be in the DC. I mean, the Creature Commandos is also kind of crazy, but that's an animated show. But a Swamp Thing feature is something I was not expecting.
No. And again, like, it's James Gunn. He likes to go places most people don't go. Yeah, Swamp Thing, they said this is going to be like a horror film.
They said it's going to be a feature, it's an origin story, and it's going to be mostly standalone, but with direct ties. Like, so it's in the same universe as the DCU. And there are going to be ties and things that carry over and stuff, but it's going to feel kind of like a standalone movie, is what they were saying.
Yeah.
So that's really cool. That's kind of an unexpected. Every time they make a Swamp Thing project, it's like, really? Like, that's a surprise. That's not the one you expect.
No. It's like Marvel making a Man-Thing TV series.
Yeah. We got Man-Thing in the MCU now, so...
Yeah, they could do it, yeah.
So that's it for the slate. There's a few other things to go over. They mentioned that they have some rules that they're trying to play by, and some of these rules include one you already kind of hinted at, which is that characters and actors are going to cross over from film to TV and vice versa, and no actor will play two parts.
Yes,
so this kind of comes up almost like as a direct response to the rumors going around about Jason Momoa.
Oh, yeah, right. Or Jason Momoa was going to play Lobo in this universe, but then there was speculation that he would also stay on as Aquaman.
Yeah.
And I think he also, kind of fed into those rumors, too. He suggested that he wasn't done with Aquaman. It looks like that's not going to happen, and I'm glad that's not going to happen, because it creates a disconnect. If you see the same actor, showing up in this supposedly connected world, they're two different people.
It's happened a few times in the MCU.
yeah. And
mostly with a smaller role and roles with lots of makeup and stuff, so you don't notice it as much.
Right. But there's
one I can remember is Cersei from the Eternals appeared before in Captain Marvel as a side character, kind of. But with lots of makeup, so you don't really recognize her.
Right. Yeah, it does create a disconnect, so I'm fine with that rule. Again, also characters, actors, crossover from film to TV. You're not going to have a situation now where there's going to be Grant Gustin playing Flash on TV, and then we got Ezra Miller in the movie.
Yeah, that's kind of the main thing.
Yeah.
The other thing we got here...
They should just get Grant Gustin for future Flash movies. F it. Call me. I'm full of good ideas.
The other thing we learned is that non-DCU stuff that's still going forward, as I mentioned, is going to be branded as Elseworlds. They kind of talked about this before, but they didn't really clearly label anything that way. And they said these will be clearly labeled as Elseworlds properties.
Which is good, yeah.
And this includes Joker Folie à Deux, which is the sequel to Joker that we've known about for a while, and the Matt Reeves Batman Part 2 and the Penguin series that he's working on are both going to be in that Elseworlds. And then they also mentioned the one kind of surprise, we already knew about it, but it's a surprise that it's still around, is that the J.J. Abrams Ta-Nehisi Coates Black Superman project is still in development.
I think I read somewhere back that was still in play. They're still working on that.
Yeah, they did say that with this unveiling and everything, with all the details that came out.
Also, some smaller tidbits. They commented, Superman and Lois on the CW, currently airing on CW. James Gunn said that has about 1 or 2 seasons left in it. Mm-hmm. No comment on the recently launched Gotham Knights on the CW. 0 comment. That's probably not long for this world.
Yeah, and I'm sure all the other stuff. I think Titans was confirmed to be canceled.
Yeah, Titans was already confirmed to be canceled. The other stuff is confirmed, so those were the loose ends. I was surprised they said that there's 1 or 2 more seasons of Superman and Lois. That's going on for a little bit longer. That's probably the last holdout of that era of DC television.
This is also this deal, if you remember when it was first announced that Gunn and Safran were going to be taken over, is also covering the video game side, and they didn't mention anything about that. And we still have some video game projects coming up.
Yeah. What do we have coming up?
Was it Suicide Squad kills the Justice League?
That's basically that's practically done.
Yeah, and then the Bat Family one is already out, right?
Yes. Yeah, Gotham Knights, that came out in August, I believe.
Yeah. So I don't know if there's anything else besides those.
I mean, Gotham Knights came out September or October. I don't know why I said August. Oh, there's a Wonder Woman movie, game that they announced at the Game Awards. It's years away still.
Yeah. So who knows? That might be gone now.
But James Gunn said the games will tie into the DCU. He gave some example, there'll be the Superman movie come out, and maybe there'll be a game where you play as Crypto, and you do this stuff, and it takes place between Superman and Supergirl. And I'm oh, okay.
Well, that's kind of interesting, because with the whole philosophy of one actor per role kind of thing, that's been one of the issues with Marvel, which has done the connectivity really well, but they've kind of just disregarded the video game side of things. We had that Avengers game where all the characters look like kind of off-brand versions of their MCU MCU sells. Like, it was like dollar store Chris Hemsworth and like, 99-cent store Robert Downey Jr.
And then you had the Avengers game where it featured none of the actors' likenesses for the MCU.
Well, that's what I was saying. That's the game I'm talking about. Like,
okay.
They kind of, they didn't look like the actors, but they looked like generic versions of the way those actors' characters looked in the MCU.
Yeah, it looked like really off,
Yeah, like I said, like dollar store Chris Hemsworth.
And so what I wanted to get back around to this is overall what they're doing with this, and I see what they're doing here, is we're not rushing towards a Batman versus Superman. We're not rushing towards a Justice League.
Yeah, we're dropping breadcrumbs.
Yeah, we're dropping breadcrumbs. What they're doing, and I said for a long time, is like introduce the characters. They're taking a slightly different approach. They're reintroducing us to the world. And if you look at the lineup, it covers so many different facets of the DC universe because they're introducing us to the entire universe. So they're like, okay, Creature Commandos and Swamp Thing stuff, that's the horror side of it. Superman Legacy.
Lanterns is cosmic, Superman Legacy and Batman, all that stuff is all Earth, with Batman
the Authority,
being like street level.
The Authority is a side of the DCU that we've never seen before.
Yeah.
They're going to introduce us to the Bat family, not just Batman. They're going to introduce us to Themyscira.
Time travel with Booster Gold.
Yeah, so this is kind of introducing the universe and their vision or their version of the DC universe.
Yeah.
Which is really cool.
It's interesting. I wonder how patient fans are going to be with it. We already know there's a contingent of DC fans that are just out for blood. We call that the cult of Snyder, which is funny because Snyder has nothing to do with them.
No, so Snyder doesn't want nothing to do with them.
Snyder's actually like they're like,
these people
kill James Gunn for his disrespecting of Snyder. Meanwhile, like James Gunn and Snyder are like good friends.
These people are like hardcore fanboys of like bad to average movies for some reason.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah.
So you already have that contingent, but then you have something that happened with Phase 4 of Marvel, where you had the big events of Phase 3 in Marvel, and then Phase 4 is kind of all about like building out and like bringing in new characters and new ideas and new concepts to kind of flesh out the new ideas that they're going to start really hitting with in Phase 5. That's kind of what this is. This kind of feels like a Phase 4 idea in the sense of like hitting disparate ideas.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of wondering how that's going to be received. Like I said, you already have a militant contingent of DC fans that are not happy about this before seeing a single thing. I wonder how that's going to reach out. Hopefully people are going to have the patience to see what they're setting up,
Oh yeah, I sure hope so, because I think it has the potential to be. Yeah, I mean, I'm optimistic about DC for the first time in a long time.
Mm-hmm.
As a note, also Peter Safran commented on the Batgirl controversy, not to many people's agreement. Peter Safran said about Batgirl that David Zaslav made the right call. It was unreleasable and it would have hurt DC.
Yeah. It's so much hearsay about that movie,
Right, yeah. That's the official line now. It's for one of the co-heads of DC Studios, so.
Yeah. That is it for our On Beat segment. Now we're moving on to a very brief On the Horizon. On the horizon. On the horizon. On the Horizon is, of course, where we talk about stuff coming up in the next week or so. We only got 2 things this week, and that is South Park, which is coming on Wednesday, February 8th to Comedy Central. Returning, I should say, not coming. And then Hogwarts Legacy, which is dropping on Friday, February 10th on PC, PS5, Xbox Series S and X, and coming later to Xbox One, PS4, and the Switch, which I'm like, I don't know why I forgot that this game was coming to Switch.
It's coming to Switch later, though. I don't believe it's coming. It's not the same time as the other versions.
Also with Xbox One and PS4 also coming later.
Yeah.
So the later gen versions are coming later. It's going to be the new next gen versions or the current gen versions sitting first.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's it for On the Horizon. And now we have to, before we jump into full spoilers, we got a sad story.
Yeah, this is real sad.
Annie Wershing, who was in the game The Last of Us. We're talking about The Last of Us in our full spoiler segment. That's why we're bringing this up.
She portrayed Tess, the voice actress for Tess in the game.
Yeah, I knew her from other things. She was on some TV shows.
If you're a fan of television, especially genre shows.
Yeah, Timeless, 24, Angel.
Yeah, you definitely recognize her. You know, she was on Star Trek Picard.
Yeah, she's one of those actors that you see her and you know who she is immediately.
Yeah.
She unfortunately passed away at the age of 45 from cancer.
That's way too young. Damn.
Yeah, that's very close to us.
Yeah, it's tragic.
Yeah, and another one from cancer. It's really unfortunate, but she was Tess in the Last of Us game, and we have enjoyed the character of Tess in the series, but I didn't play the games. You were able to watch her performance in the first game though.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it's a really sad loss. And so that's it. Now we're going to move on to our final segment, and that is full spoilers. This week on Full Spoilers, we are talking about the third episode of The Last of Us, which I forgot to write down the title of. But I don't need it. This episode was directed by Peter Hoare, who worked on Daredevil, the Netflix Daredevil series. This episode started, I was kind of like, is my prediction last week that they kind of have a format where they're going to start things with a flashback? Is that wrong? Because they just jumped right into Joel and Ellie. But then they, pretty quickly, after like a brief scene with Joel and Ellie involving Joel going to an old stash spot and then
it's old stash spot. It's Joel going to a Cumbies. It's like, I was like, holy shit, it's Cumbies. I mean,
I don't know what that is. That must be an East Coast thing. Yeah.
Yeah, it's Cumberland Farms. It's a convenience store chain in Massachusetts. Having lived in Massachusetts, I've been there. Like, so it was just weird seeing a Cumbies in like a major HBO television show. I mean, it makes sense. They're like right outside of Boston. I mean, yeah, makes sense for it to be there, but usually it's like some made up shit. Like, yeah. So that was fun.
Speaking of made up shit versus stuff that's recognizable, apparently in the game, when they go to this location, they have like an arcade game that Ellie is checking out that she knows about but has never played.
Yeah, that's
a made up game.
Made up game that's very obviously like Mortal Kombat, from like the design of the cabinet to the way Ellie's talking about the characters and what's going on.
But here we actually have Mortal Kombat.
Yes.
Mortal Kombat 2, I should say.
Which I'm wondering, what the producers had to do to get that, because clearly they couldn't directly reference it in the game, but here they could.
Yeah, they worked that out. I mean, it's pretty high profile HBO show, I'm sure. I'm sure they probably didn't have to pay for
that. Yeah, I'm pretty sure they didn't. That was also neat to see.
We got to see Ellie kill one of the infected.
Yeah.
Who was trapped. And yeah, they just kind of made a pit stop there, and then it jumps back to the start of the apocalypse, basically, when everything was happening in 2003. And we get to meet the character of Bill, played by Nick Offerman, who is happy to see the apocalypse. He is having a grand old time. He is running around with his truck, and he attached a boat to it just to help haul gear, and he is just doing everything you should do in that situation. He's stocking up on natural gas and solar panels.
He's doing exactly what I would be doing in his situation.
He's just stocking up and getting everything right, setting up gates, everything around the area.
Oh yeah.
He is doing everything he right as a survivalist.
He set up traps around the area to kill infected who stumble onto his property.
Yeah, they had that funny one with the tripwire.
Yeah, watching with utter glee as they walk right into his traps and get themselves killed.
Yeah, he just has no love for humanity, and he's just like, this is him in his element. This is, you always hear people talk about like, I can't wait for the zombie apocalypse and stuff. And those people that are like, oh, they have the plan in their head and they're like looking forward to it. Like, that's who this is.
Yeah.
He is a man who just doesn't like other people and is happy to see this come and is very well prepared and gets everything ready.
And seems to be perfectly content. He provided himself with all the amenities he needs. He has his own generated power. He has his own, ability to farm.
Mm-hmm.
Not sure where he's getting the meat, but, like...
the first meal they had, I think, was rabbits. So I think he might just be getting some wild...
it might be, some wild animals around the area, yeah.
Yeah.
Nothing like beef or anything, because I didn't see no cows.
Yeah. It's not as unbelievable to have that happen in this world versus, say, like The Walking Dead, where, like, in The Walking Dead, there's literally shots of zombies, like, eating and infecting, like, animals and stuff.
Yeah, because, like, they very specifically said, like, this is a human infecting cordyceps. They don't have interest in other animals. It's specialized for humans. That's what they're interested in.
And we mentioned before that cordyceps are so hyper specific about what they and like real cordyceps, because there are real cordyceps, and they're so very hyper specific to an exact species, not just like ants, but like a specific species of ants.
Yeah, so the clickers in here aren't really a danger to the local wildlife.
Yeah, so there's gonna just be wildlife teeming, probably thriving.
Yes.
Because they're not being hunted and pushed out of their habitats by humans.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
So he's hunting, having a great time. Then he ends up getting a little visitor. Bent falls into one of his traps. And it's kind of like, you see how awkward Bill becomes in this moment. Like, you think like, oh, he's gonna tell him to get out of there. And he kind of, it's like he's trying to, but he's like so awkward. He can't like even look him in the eye, really.
Well, this guy isn't what Bill thinks of people. Like, I don't know, like, what Bill's interactions with people were pre the downfall of society. They don't really go into that. It's hinted in the way he acts, his behavior, that he's never had particularly good relationships. Mm-hmm. He's always been withdrawn. And so in this initial, you kind of get the sense that, like, Bill's hoping that this person is infected or they're like some sort of asshole or something to where he could be justified in dismissing this person. And he is not. He is a genuinely good person who also happens to be perfectly healthy.
It's just interesting because, like, we saw Bill thriving so much in this post-apocalypse environment. And here he's like, he can barely speak. Like, he's almost whispering when he talks to him.
Yeah.
He's kind of like stutters a little bit. He's like, doesn't look him in the eye. And it's like, you immediately get these like introverted traits of his character coming like front and center, coming right out into the open. And it's like a very different type of portrayal of the same character in like a moment, because it doesn't take long for it to get from us seeing Bill on his own to the character of Frank showing up in one of his traps.
No.
He allows Frank to come in to his house to have a meal. He cooks him a meal. He allows him to have a shower at his place. Even then, like, there's this kind of awkward moment about if he's gonna leave or not. And then, Frank goes and sits at the piano because Bill has a piano in his house and is playing it, and they bond over that. And it's just like, immediately you can tell there's kind of something between these two. And it plays out on it very quickly. Apparently in the games, which again, I haven't played, and Will's played only a little bit of. Apparently in the games, you never like meet Frank. You only see him like when he's already dead or something. And it's only hinted at that there's a relationship between these two characters.
Yeah. In the games, it's not explicit. And you beat Bill after the fact, after Frank has passed away. And this is the biggest diversion from the games so far.
Mm-hmm.
We'll get into how it's a huge divergence. But yeah,
I really dug that this episode, because if you remember what I was talking, do you remember my biggest complaints about the last two episodes was that there's like no hope. There's no livability. There's nothing like people living in a way that makes you feel like this is a world you could live in.
Right.
And this episode is that.
Yeah.
Like, exactly. So not only is like, Bill set up to thrive in this circumstance, not only does does he encounter this person who, you know, he ends up starting this romance with, Frank, but it's just like a happy story of like an entire life spent together.
This is a story of two people in the apocalypse who are not struggling to survive every second. They've got the survival part figured out. You know, like they got that figured out. They're just living their lives together. And yeah, there's like some moments, you know, some dicey moments. There's a moment where like raiders come and try to take over their compound.
Oh, such a badass scene. Like, yeah, such a because they had before that we got a cool scene with Joel and Tess.
Yeah, well, I love it.
It's cool to bring Tess back too. Yeah, like a way to bring Tess back.
I love it because like Frank goes to Bill. You know, like Frank's insisting that they make friends, and Bill's nervous about that because he's Bill and he's not a very social person. Like we know this. Bill tries to argue that, you know, the world ended, there are no friends to be made, and then Frank tells him about the people he's been talking to over the radio. And you can, and you
was
can
like
see
freaked out.
And yeah, you can see like how Bill's not happy about that. You know, yeah.
I just like it because he freaks out like hard for like a second, and then it cuts directly to them meeting Joel and Tess and having a nice like lunch outside on the street.
Bill's got his gun out the entire time. Yeah. And Bill does not look at all happy the entire time.
And it's just kind of funny the way they introduce this like peaceful moment even with them. But in that moment, you know, Joel is talking to Bill when Tess and Frank go off for a little bit and are talking. And then while that's happening, Bill and Joel are talking, and Joel's like, you need to get that gun out of my face. And then he's like, you may think you have everything handled, but that gate has about a year left in its life. You know, he's like, I can get you aluminum, like for the top of that gate that'll last you for the rest of your lives. And he makes that clear too. Because he says your life, and then he says lives, meaning both him and Frank, you know?
Yes.
And, he says like, and then when all of that's over, he tells Bill, he says, listen, if they haven't come already, you're gonna get hit by raiders. They're gonna come in the night, they're gonna be quiet, and they're gonna cut away at your fence, and they're gonna sneak in, and this is, like, he basically tells them what's gonna happen. And Bill's reaction is like, oh, I got that handled. Like, he's just like a very cocky, like, you almost expect things not to go well, you know? It's just like, oh yeah, that's handled. Don't worry about that, you know? And then we immediately cut to that scene of those raiders going there, and holy shit, Bill is completely ready for raiders.
Yeah, he's completely ready for it. He takes them out. He takes a bullet, but he survives it with Frank's help.
That was extremely well done too, because they had the scene of what appeared to be Bill dying. And Bill, in his like moments as he's dying, in quotation marks, he's telling Frank, you need to call Joel. You cannot be here alone. This is not going to work for you alone. You need somebody else. Call Joel. You need to call Joel.
The only thing Bill is concerned about at that point is that Frank is taken care of.
And Frank's like, no, you don't need to, you know, worry about that. I'll take care of you. And Bill's like, no, you don't understand. You need to call Joel, you know? And then it looks like he dies. Like there's like the way they cut it, it looks like he dies. And it cuts 10 years or so later after that. And you see the two in a distance. You can't even really tell who they are. And one is in a wheelchair. And the initial expectation is, oh, Bill's in a wheelchair now because he was shot. No, it's Frank who's in a wheelchair. Bill is completely fine. He's old. They're both much older, but like he's completely fine. He's pushing Frank in a wheelchair. Frank is suffering from what appears to be cancer because he does make a comment about
it's either cancer or I also heard MS.
It could be the only real clue is that they say like Bill's like, oh, somebody might come by, and Frank's like, they weren't able to cure this before. What makes you think they're going to be able to cure this now? Which is like makes you think like, oh, this has got to be like you said, could be MS, cancer, something like that, you know?
Yeah. We just know, like, it's a fatal, incurable disease.
Yeah. And we get to see them in this moment with Bill as, like, a caretaker to Frank, considerably softened. He's, like, much softer than he was before. He's very attentive, and you can see how much he cares about Frank and how much effort he goes through to make him his meal every day, to get him up, to move him into bed, to do all these things. And this starts off pretty quickly in the scene where we get Frank telling Bill this is his last day. He's like, I want to die. He's like, I'm either going to die now or I'm going to die slowly and not too far off.
Yeah, he doesn't want to Yeah, Frank knows what's waiting for him with this disease, and he doesn't want it to get to the point where he's dying in unbearable agony. So he wants to end it on his own terms.
Yeah, so he lays out this thing. He's all, you're gonna make me some toast. We're gonna go to the boutique, which was cool that Frank was rebuilding all these shops in the town.
Oh yeah, that was really fun. Yeah. He was oh, the boutique, and Bill was like, the boutique? Bill didn't see a point in doing any of that, but it's what Frank wanted to do.
And so Frank said, you're gonna take me to the boutique, and I'm gonna pick out some clothes for you and me, and we're gonna dress up in those clothes, and we're gonna get married. And then you're gonna make me dinner, and we're gonna enjoy that, and then you're gonna crush up some pills into my wine, and then you're gonna put me in bed with you, and I'll die in your arms. And we just basically see that play out, in little bits. We don't have, it doesn't play out, over a long course. You just kind of get, it very quickly show it play out. That you see them in the clothes that Frank picked out. You see them, him pushing the wheelchair down the street when they were doing that. You see them having dinner. It's the same dinner, the first dinner that Bill served to Frank. The rabbit with the wine. He serves the wine the same way. He turns the bottle around and pours it over his arm like a waiter. He does the whole shtick exactly the same. And then he puts the pills in the wine and hands it to Frank. And as soon as Frank finishes it, he drinks his wine. And Frank's just kind of looking at him, and he's like, you put pills in the bottle, didn't you? And he said, enough to kill a horse.
Yeah.
And that's the point where oh, okay, well, Bill's going out too. He's decided, you're going out, I'm going out. We're going out together.
Yeah.
And
Bill said he's old, he's satisfied, and Frank was all that he had to live for.
Exactly. And they go off, and he puts him in the bed, and they go in the bed, and they close the door, and then we cut back to Joel and
Ellie, who are on their way to Frank's, and who get there. It must not be that long after,
a little bit of time's passed because the flowers are dying.
Yeah. It's maybe a week, maybe a couple weeks later.
That's Joel's first clue that something's wrong. It's because they get in, they open up the gate, they walk in, and then as they're walking in, he sees a flower pot and sees half the flowers are dead. It's the plant's dying.
Yeah.
And you can see kind of a look on his face what's going on? And then they go in, and he's looking through that, he's calling out for Bill and Frank, and he's looking for him, and as he's doing that, Ellie finds the letter that Bill left behind for Joel. I love that the letter is great on multiple levels, because in one level it's great because it says on the outside of the letter, for whoever finds this, but probably Joel.
Yeah.
Which I thought was really funny. And then the other really funny part is that as he's going through the letter, it's touching and funny, is the letter is basically about the fact that Bill hated everybody and was happy when everybody died when the apocalypse started, and how that changed upon him meeting Frank. And then he compared Joel and himself as being similar, there are people who need to protect other people, that's the kind of people they are. And he says, and God help anybody who gets in the way. I love Ellie reading that part was really funny. And it just goes through, and then there's a point where as Ellie's reading this to Joel, she stops because he says, I'm leaving everything to you, use it to protect, and then Ellie can't finish what was saying.
Yeah, it said use it to protect Tess.
Yeah, Joel grabs the letter and reads that outside, and
this is a big thing for Joel here, because basically in this letter, Bill is saying, you're a protector, you protect the ones that you love. And this is after Joel has already failed to protect Tess. And that's the second time Joel has failed to protect somebody he loved. First, this was pointed out. Now it's Tess.
After every episode, they have kind of a behind-the-scenes thing with the showrunners, and they specifically address this, saying that this is a sign of Joel's failures. That he failed to protect. He failed to protect his daughter. He failed to protect Tess, and now he's having to take care of this girl, Ellie.
This steals his resolve that he's going to protect Ellie. That Ellie now, Joel is now coming around to the idea that Ellie's not just a job for him, not just a mission. His resolve is now stealing to be her protector.
Yeah. So they pack up on guns and food and toilet paper, the pandemic essential, and they're getting everything ready, and they have a truck.
Yeah.
They even got some tunes.
They even got some Linda Ronstadt.
Yeah. Which is great. The use of that song in this episode is great, because the first time I'd mentioned Frank playing the piano, and he's playing the song as it's written in sheet music, but playing it all wrong, like as if he hasn't heard it. And then Bill takes over and he's playing it in like a very soft, and he's singing it very soulfully and emotionally, and that's what starts kind of their romance. Like, that's in that moment when they start their romance. And then that is the song that plays on the tape when they pop it in.
Yeah.
Which is just a good, top to everything else, like a good cap to everything that happened in this episode.
Yeah, good cap to the episode, yeah.
Yeah, this is easily the best episode of the show so far. This is everything I wanted. This is like, everything I was complaining about not being in The Last of Us was this episode, you know?
Right.
I came to the conclusion, I'm like, rather than see the story about Joel and Ellie and them trying to turn her over so she can be a cure, rather than all of that, I'd kind of rather just them have episodes like this. I'd rather have them come across other people that, are either gone or maybe have left, and then see their stories of, people that were living in this. I know that's not what we're getting.
No, but you could go back to being unsatisfied next week.
But this is everything I wanted, and it's apparently quite different from the game.
Yeah, because again, the game, Joel and Ellie meet up with Bill. Bill is still alive. Frank isn't. I know, talking to a friend who played the game, they said they were looking forward to seeing Bill interact with Ellie, and his interactions with Ellie being translated from the game to show. That obviously doesn't happen here. This version of Bill never meets Ellie.
Yeah, exactly. I know some people are probably going to be disappointed about that. I did see some people talking about that exact thing, about the interactions between Bill and Ellie being a big deal in the game because they kind of hate each other, I guess.
Right,
And their interactions are supposed to be pretty funny and stuff, and I know people are looking forward to that, but again, I haven't played the game, so I don't know for sure, but from what I've heard, that whole segment of The Last of Us with Bill is in the game, and what I saw in the show, I think we got the better story in the show. Yeah. So yeah, I really dug it, and you just really got to give it up to. I've always loved Nick Offerman, but Jesus.
Nick Offerman. Oh geez, yeah, A+.
Yeah, him and Murray Bartlett, who played Frank. Yeah, fantastic chemistry between the two of them. Fantastic performances, but especially Nick Offerman, man, he just nailed it.
On top of their game.
Yeah, so good. So good. It makes me kind of excited to see episode 4, but also nervous at the same time, because I'm like, episode 4 is not going to be this good.
Episode 4 is back to the main plot, so...
Yeah. Time for me to tune out and just watch Tropes the show again.
Watch Tropes the show. At least the performances will be good. Don't worry.
That brings us to an end of our full spoiler segment. Next week, we are not going to be talking about episode 4 of The Last of Us, actually, because we're going to be talking about a movie that we've been waiting to hit Disney Plus so that we can talk about it, and it finally happened.
We've been waiting forever.
Yes, it's finally happened. So next week we are going to be discussing Black Panther: Wakanda Forever. The week after that we're going to be talking about episodes 4 and 5 of The Last of Us. But next week we're discussing Black Panther: Wakanda Forever. So hey, even if episode 4 isn't that great, they got another shot with episode 5.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah, I'm hoping you enjoyed the rest of it. We'll see.
Yeah, definitely. So that is it for our show. Thank you, everybody, for listening. You can reach us on Twitter. I'm at Tyson Gifford. Will is at Voxel Hero. You can check out our website, thetotalscreen.com. If you open up the container story for any of our podcast episodes, you'll find all the relevant links you need, including our SoundCloud page, our Facebook page, all that stuff is there. And again, the best way to reach us is on our personal Twitter accounts, at Tyson Gifford, at Voxel Hero. Thank you, everybody, for listening. Good night.
Good night.
Thank you for listening to the OnScreen podcast, the official podcast of The Total Screen. Visit our website at thetotalscreen.com. This podcast can be found on any major podcast client, including Pocket Cast, and Apple Podcast. The entire backlog of this podcast and other content can be found on our YouTube channel.